As I said in a previous video there, I'm going to try to make grape jam, which I've never heard tell of before. I've never seen it in a store anywhere. You see lots of grape jelly, but I've never seen a grape jam. It's a jam because you add the skins and the pulp from the inside back into the mix rather than just using the liquid. I'm following the instructions that come with the Certo pectin, and this particular recipe is just the plain Concord grape jam. Well, mine aren't Concord, as I've said before, they're Beta, but that's the same variety, same type as Concord, not the same variety, but a slipskin grape. And I have got a lot of squeezing to do here. I thought initially that you'd have to make a knife slit in each one of these, but having read the instructions, it is easier than that. I have to just make a squeeze and the insides come out. And you save the skins off to one side because they're going to be chopped and added back into the mix before the jam is complete. And this calls for the powdered Certo. And I have learned from experience that you cannot substitute one for the other. If the recipe calls for powdered Certo, you've got to use powdered Certo and not the liquid variety. It also calls for 4 pounds of Concord grapes. So that's what you see there in those 2 containers. I weighed out 4 pounds of my grapes. And that isn't even half of the basket of grapes. I would say maybe it's a third of the basket of grapes. So if I like this, I can certainly make a second batch, I guess. Anyway, this is pretty boring, I realize, so I will bring you back when I have finished pinching grapes. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. I guess that's usually the way when you tackle something. But I discovered that because these grapes are so small, I can squeeze 2 or 3 of them at a time, so it went much faster. But I have this bowl. It looks like it's full of fish eyes, and these are the skins. The ingredients are few. The grapes, obviously, 7½ cups of sugar, a cup of water, and the powdered Certo. I'm using Certo pectin, not because it's better than any other pectin, but because it's their recipe that I'm following. So, anyway, to begin with, the interior of the grapes, the pulp, or whatever you want to call it, and the seeds, they go in a saucepan. And it says with a cup of water. There was already juice enough there. I didn't so sure that it needed a cup of water, but I will do what it says to do. That gets brought to a boil and then reduced to a simmer and simmered for 5 minutes. And while that is happening, I will chop those up in the food processor because they get added shortly afterward. There really is quite a bit of skins in this bowl. I've been compressing them as I went so I get them all to fit into one bowl, but it's really quite a bit. I don't know if I should have put those all in there at once or not, but I did. I think that's got them well pulverized. I'll have to do anyway. The mixture came to a boil, and then I let it simmer, turned the heat down and let it simmer for 5 minutes. And basically it's just a liquid now with the seeds in it, so it shouldn't be too difficult to put it through a sieve even, but I'm going to use the food mill. I have a sieve, but I always use this and I always get good results with it, so I think I'll carry on. I'm using the finest. There are 3 different screens. That's it, basically. That 2 ladles full went through very quickly. I'm using the finest because some of these seeds are quite small and I didn't want them to go through the holes. So I'll bring you back when I have finished this process and ready to add the skins back into it. Well, they've all been strained out. Boy, was there a lot of seeds, which has me a bit concerned. You combine the diced up, or in my case, word up peelings with the pulp and juice with the seeds removed. And then you measure 6 cups of this mixture to make your jam with. I have this awful sinking feeling that there's not 6 cups there. I've got to prepare more grapes, and there's a seed right there that has made it through the whole process somehow. Anyway, I will measure and see how many cups I get, and if I have to make more, I'll make more before I continue with the next step here. Well, if anything, it was only short, maybe a couple of tablespoons, so I'm going to go with that. I think it'll be okay. I was surprised. I didn't think there was 6 cups after I combined the 2. But this is where it differs from using the liquid pectin. When it's cold, you add the crystal or powdered pectin, whatever you want to call it. Or it's warm, rather. It's not, hasn't been brought to a boil yet, anyway. It's still warm from when I cooked the pulp part. 1 package of the pectin crystals. You stir it in thoroughly. And then this is brought to a full rolling boil. And as soon as it reaches a full rolling boil, you add the sugar, which is 7.5 cups of sugar. I already have that measured out. So, I haven't even got the heat turned on yet, but I'll bring you back when it's at a full rolling boil. Well, I think I'll call that a full rolling boil. It certainly is boiling away there. Add the sugar, 7.5 cups of just ordinary white sugar. And once again, it's allowed to return to the boil after you've mixed it in thoroughly, to a full rolling boil once again, and you time it this time 1 minute at a full rolling boil. So I will bring you back at that stage. Well, the timer is just about to go off. It's been back at its full rolling boil for almost a minute. There we go. So I shut the heat off, and now you stir without stopping continuously for 5 minutes by the clock. Whoa, and I almost dumped you in the middle of it. That would have been a new GoPro video. I'll bring you back in 5 minutes time when it's time to put this in the bottles. I have stirred for 5 minutes, and the purpose of this 5-minute stirring is to get rid of the foam which will be on top, and also it's supposed to prevent any fruit, in this case it's skins, from rising to the top as it gels. Well, I find sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. As long as it tastes okay, I don't care if they float to the top or not. As I don't think I've said in this video, but I said in the previous video when I picked these grapes. I made grape jelly last year and it was beautiful. Gelled beautifully. Great looking stuff. Absolutely no flavor. I don't know why, at least to my taste. There was absolutely no flavor. This should make 4 of these 500 milliliter jars, and I won't make you sit here and watch me do that. And there should be some left over, not enough for a 5th jar, according to the instructions. In which case, I will put it in that 5th jar that I have here, but I will refrigerate it and use it immediately, because it won't can properly if the jar isn't full. So, I'll show you the finished product. Well, the recipe was right there anyway. It made 4 500 milliliter jars, and this one partially full, not quite half full, I wouldn't call it. But anyway, as I say, I will refrigerate that and use it as soon as it's cooled off. An indication of how well or poorly everything worked is when you take a spoon to the pot that you cooked the jam in. After it started to cool, the pot is cooling down, and if it is setting up pretty well, which is what that is doing, I think it might eventually run off the spoon, but I just scraped that off the walls and off the bottom of the pot, and it is gelling, so that is hopeful for the final product here. And I'm going to taste this. I have to find out what it's like. Lots of grape flavor. Grape, that is, not great. Well, it's great too, I guess. A little bit of texture from the skins and whatever in there, but first indication anyway, I think that's going to be much better than the jelly that I made last year. Well, the first batch without the spices was successful enough that I've decided to carry on and make the spiced batch, and this recipe calls for liquid Certo. I didn't bother to show you the preparation of the grapes again. The same idea. You remove the skins, cook the skinless part, and chop the skins and add them back together. There's a couple of differences. Instead of adding a cup of water when you're cooking the skinless grapes, it's half a cup of water. And instead of using 6 cups of the fruit mixture, it is 5 cups of the fruit mixture. Don't ask me why. It's something to do with the difference between the liquid and the powdered Certo, I guess. Anyway, the spices are not a great deal of spice. It's half a teaspoon of cinnamon and a half a teaspoon of ground cloves, ground cinnamon and ground cloves, and I've already pre-measured them. Should be quite flavorful as spices go. When I did a house cleaning this past spring, I threw out a lot of spices that had been in my cupboard for I don't know how long, assuming that a lot of the strength and power had gone. So today I had to buy new cloves and cinnamon, so they're first time I've used these. But it's a small amount, though, of spice. I was surprised, but I think perhaps the idea being that you don't want the spice to overpower the flavor of the grapes. And in the other batch that I just made, the flavor is excellent, and the grape jam so much better than the grape jelly. And now the sugar, which is the same amount, it's 7.5 cups, the same as the last batch. But the pectin, as you'll notice, has not been added yet. This gets brought to a rolling boil and boils for 1 minute, and then you add the liquid Certo pectin. You shut the heat off first, and then you add the liquid Certo pectin and stir for 5 minutes. So I will bring you back when it is just about finished its 1 minute at a full rolling boil, and we'll proceed from that point. It has been to a full rolling boil now for almost the full minute, waiting again for the timer to go off. Shut off the heat, turn off the timer, and add the liquid pectin, Certo brand in this case. There are 2 pouches in a box of this particular brand of pectin, and the instructions say to use 1 pouch. So now I have to stir by the clock for 5 minutes, and I'll bring you back when I'm putting this in the jars. I keep forgetting to say that I will put the link or links to these 2 recipes. They're both online, and I will put them in the description down below. And I might as well, while I'm at it, say once again that the reason for this stirring is to, they say, to skim and get rid of the foam. I find by the time I have finished stirring for 5 minutes, the foam has disappeared. But it's also supposed to prevent the fruit, or in this case it would just be the skins, I guess, and a little bit of pulp, from all floating to the top. This helps as it cools and you're stirring it. It helps to suspend it in the jam. I just finished my 5 minutes stirring, and as I say, once again, the foam just disappears. I've never had to skim anything, so I don't know quite why they always say that. And the aroma is really special. Combination of the 2 spices and the grape. Don't know what it's going to taste like, but it really smells good. I should have enough for these 4 pints, and a bit left over again that I'll put in a bowl or something. Oops. I have to clean the rim on that one, I guess. Well, once this has all been bottled, you set it aside for, it says 24 hours or until it has gelled. So I will, it's early evening here, I will set it aside for overnight anyway, I guess. But before I finish this video off, we'll have a tasting of both of them. Although I've already tasted the first one and it's quite good, but give you a chance to show you how it gelled up anyway. It won't make you watch me go any further, and I'll do this rest of this on my own, and I'll see you when it's time to taste this. Well, as promised, a taste testing, but first I have to explain about bagels. Some of you people living in New York or Boston or Chicago or San Francisco, Toronto or Vancouver, you may think that you have a bagel, but you're wrong. To be a true bagel, it has to come from Boulangerie St-Viateur in Montreal, the St-Viateur bakery in Montreal. That's just my opinion, I'm only joking. And for me, it also has to have poppy seeds. But I love their bagels. They are flown into New Brunswick fresh on almost a daily basis. So I have one toasted and already buttered. First we'll try the regular plain grape jelly. I'm very pleased with the way both of them gelled. As you can see, they're standing up fairly well on the plate here, if I can get it on the bagel first though. What I'm going to do with all of the jams and jellies that I've made this year, I'll have to give a lot of them away Christmas time, or I'll be years getting it consumed. So much better than the jelly that I made last year, which now I know it's not just my taste buds. I don't taste any grape in the jelly that I made at all. This has a lovely, strong, sort of Concord grape flavor. So I won't get it on the same bagel and cross-pollinate here. I'll put the spiced one on the other slice of the bagel. Wasn't a great deal of spice, as you saw. A half teaspoon of cinnamon and a quarter teaspoon of cloves. You get the spice flavor in the background there, but also you still get the nice flavor of the grapes. So I guess I was right in their reasoning for why they only put a small amount of spice in, but surprised that even in this made 4 500 milliliter jars, but you can still taste the spices quite nicely, and also the flavor of the grapes come through. So, if you have some Concord or other slip skin type grapes, I hope you give this a try, and thank you very much for watching.